Hello, Kevin. Let me practice the power. So I have this theory that text communication is fundamentally flawed. Uh, and Recently I've been working on motivational streams and started a separate journal that is concerned with just the motivation. Right, so I have some notes specific to motivation, and while working on this journal, I figured that my latest uh, N of one findings suggest that this effect of text, and I started to experiment with qualitative interviewing, uh, doing video communication on Telegram, and I had this very strong case of the difference between the video communications that I had on Telegram and the text communications that I had mostly at the same time on Discord. So my experience was positive on Telegram and negative on Discord. I felt discouraged with these communications. Uh, so this is why basically I'm putting a break on text communication, like more deliberately putting a break on them. Since we are talking on Discord, I try to maybe I should send a video instead, just to experiment whether it will fly. Uh, so. On one hand, the video communication might not be as convenient. It needs more bandwidth uh, to record and um, to intake, and working with text is less convenient when we are watching a video. Uh, but so this is why it's not a no-brainer, and we should see whether it will work in this particular discussion or not. Uh, by the way, here in this text, where I'm coming from, that there is a quote from a work of art, but I think it captures something that I have also observed in different teams I worked with, and I observed that. So when I worked with America Online, I observed that there is this huge difference between how the team interacts in United States, where they go into the office and talk with each other and dine with each other, uh, and how it interacts in the freelancer part, where the communication is only textual. There was this huge difference. This is maybe where I can begin to look more deeply into this. And this quote here, it kind of captures what I have observed in text-based teams. I'm not sure if this is true for teams who actually communicate non-verbally with each other, like working in the same office. Uh, all these long-established organizations, with time, their practices always degenerate, start draining everything out of the participants, turn into a cycle of abuse aimed at no one in particular. Text communication isn't the only source of this, and another problem is that we often try to optimize uh, for the goals of organization, and uh, win-win and keeping people motivated. It exists on paper somewhere, but nobody actually works on this. In most organizations, nobody actually works on maintaining a balance of interests between people who participate in an organization and the goals of the organization itself. Uh, so uh, this focus on organizational goals, it eventually leads to this disbalance and to people basically lose trust. They go into an organization hoping for a win-win situation for them to achieve the goals, like Boyd very aptly described in Destruction and Creation, why we join organizations. But this process is much more pronounced. This red shift towards negativity is much more pronounced in text-based teams, in my experience. And interestingly, Brian Fitzpatrick and Ben Colin Sarsman also mentioned this in passing, that you'd rarely see a project going from more aggressive to more peaceful and quiet. So cultures change, they're not just perpetuate, they also change, and they often change towards more aggressive, towards less friendly, less peaceful and friendly. And like I said, my theory goes that nonverbal communication, video communication, somehow offsets this red shift. And to me, it is actually much more important to solve this problem on a fundamental level, experiment with it, than, uh, for example, implementing the port of the Rust port of the GAN database. Because databases come and go, but this is a fundamental problem that will affect how I engage with organizations in the future. So for me, this is much more, much a much more interesting and meaningful problem than the port itself. So you can say that I'm utilizing, that I'm using the opportunities offered by the GAN port to explore these more deeper and more important subjects. So we have been talking in this text chat about this clash between the goal of having a good image, of being smooth, of selling things well, and the goal of developing the team, of making the team grow. And in fact, something I thought yesterday about is that a good leader in that sense might be compared to a father. Maybe we can imagine a father and somebody. For some reason, I imagine Peterson, Jordan Peterson, this famous populistic psychologist, who often invites his daughter to his video channels. So we can imagine if a father who is invited to an interview and people expect him to kind of sell his thing, sell his ideas. But instead, he talks about his daughter, for example, or calls it and invites her to participate somehow in this interview. And we might imagine uh, a shock and surprise, maybe a mild shock and surprise in people who, instead of looking at Peterson, who is a kind of a there is a certain guruism about him. So people like might be fans of him, and his daughter is a much less prominent in the priority system. Peterson is authority, someone to look uh, as a role model, maybe, or as an authority, or as a teacher, teacher of life teacher, so someone who will save them, basically, savior. But his daughter, she has absolutely no relevance to people who came to look at this Jesus Peterson. But he might ignore all that and call for his daughter and ask her to participate. So he kind of doesn't care about his image and can throw his image away in favor of his daughter, and it makes sense for him, right? And this is something I would expect of a good leader, because like John Katseopa mentioned in this TEDx lecture of his, that we might be evolutionarily wired towards this kind of distinction between good and evil. So good is something that works for society. So this leader, he doesn't think about himself. He thinks about the people uh, the people who decided to join his network, the people who decided to work with him. He thinks about them in a positive way, and he prefers uh, to for them to advance. Uh, this is his social standing, right? And this is why we think of him as a good leader, a good person. Uh, and this also reminds me of Erich Fromm, the Fromm's Art of Loving, where he classifies kind of uh, differentiates between different kinds of love, and he has this notion that a love of a parent uh, it means that it means to make the child independent from the parent and send them away into the world. So the life of the parent means uh, helping the child grow until uh, he leaves the parent. And this is also true of good psychologists. This is what one of my teacher she lectures for just two or three times, but she passed along this idea that a good psychologist uh, can be recognized can be recognized by the fact that and she's a child psychologist, so she told us that a good psychologist can be recognized in that a child after a session or two no longer needs this psychologist. As soon as the problem is solved, the child loses the attention to psychologist like instantly and goes away to play and forgets about psychologist forever. Uh, and a bad psychologist is someone who makes the child dependent on them. Uh, but this is not what I wanted to show you. It's just I'm repeating this text, and maybe you can see the difference between the text and the video. I'm interested in whether there is a difference in impression. But what I wanted to show, um, the dog escaped. What I wanted to show you is also this clash between different approaches. Um, a similar, somewhat related clash maybe that I've just found mentioned in this book about qualitative interviewing. The clash between listening uh, and between selling, between promoting, listening and promoting, different goals and different approaches. So, so important in requirement. This talks of how can we convince people to undertake the interviewing, uh, and they have this problematic interview where even Weiss himself only had a 50-50 success, and his team was faring even less well. And they all were discouraged by the rejections. So they asked people to participate in the interview and were rejected, and the team was discouraged by that. But one staff member, they noticed, had an 80% of success. And they went through what she was doing. Uh, I said I was too busy. Mrs. Adams seemed not to notice. She continued in a pleasant and engaging fashion to describe I said, no, I'd rather not participate. Miss Noah said, yes, of course, I understand, but I want to tell you why the study is being done and who is doing it. And she went on to tell me about the sponsorship of the study and the kinds of questions that would be asked, how important it would be to have my perspective. She said that the interview would help establish the nature of the stresses in managerial and administrative work and might contribute to the amelioration. She says that I would find the interview interesting and that it would be held whenever and wherever suited me. Well, now I was intrigued by the study and flattered to be so wanted, as well as just a bit exasperated by being unable to escape. Uh, so she was a good recruiter basically by not listening, by accepting and ignoring. Like when we want in meditation, when we want to silence a thought, we accept its presence, but let it float away. It's one of the techniques. She was doing this meditative process with people, and maybe I shouldn't call it meditative because It's only one of many ways to meditate. Um, but also a demon recruiter, she turned out not to be good interviewer. Her ability to seem responsive while continuing firmly on her own track, which made her a wonderful recruiter, produced difficulties for her as an interviewer. In recruiting, she got people to see the world her way. And this reminds me of Mark Nadal, right? He's good at promoting his ideas and in making people see the world his way. I think this is his goal. This is something he works on being a good presenter. Um, but uh, as an interviewer, Mrs. Adams basically talked instead of listening. And if the respondent wanted to talk about something else, she would become impatient. Uh, when they made a pause, she would supply them with an answer, with her own answer. Uh, her suggestion, because she didn't listen well, her suggestions flight of the marks, so she would lose rapport with her suggestions, uh, and eventually respondents showed the mark that she lost this connection. Right? And they tried to improve this, but they basically failed. They couldn't teach Miss Adams to be a good interviewer. She was a good promoter instead. Uh, so maybe she will become a good interviewer, but this kind of transition it needs time. Uh, so that's a kind of an example of how these goals might clash. A goal of a leader who uh, wants to listen to his team and to help them develop, and a leader who wants to promote his ideas. These are different goals, and they might clash. And here we see an example of this. So, I wonder if it has been interesting. Here, by the way, I have this one ring, and I've been uh, exploring this one ring today while thinking about motivation. So the graphics, I'm going to use graphics, and the graphics they are kind of like a ring shining in the dark, and when there is this darkness, such as the loneliness Petsopa spoke of. So was I mentioned this lecture, um, shown this lecture earlier in this video. Uh, so in some kind of social darkness, the graphics they kind of represent this social values, social um, safety, uh, and they have a power, the power of one ring. Like I was talking before, the benchmarks are very powerful. But they are also powerful when there is a certain kind of social darkness, a certain kind of disconnect, or kind of lack of inner energy, inner meaning in a person's life. So this is interesting aspect. Anyhow, I, I'm curious what you see about the video I'm curious what you think about video communication. Uh, See you.